Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another journey, another episode, chilling episode of We the People Let's Talk. I'm George by George, and you know that I'm loquacious. You know that I'm curious. Well, without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest. He's a tremendous person. I've known him for years. He could be my grandson. That tells you how old I am. Anyhow, let me cut to the chase here. My special guest today is a school board member in the district in Osceola County. His name, and I'm sure that you know him and you are aware of him, very controversial, very truthful, lays everything on the line, and his name is Jon Arguello. Jon, welcome.
Hi, George. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm great. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being here, taking the time out. I know you're busy schedule, but nevertheless, let me ask you this before we get into the school board thing. Give me some background about you. I don't know too much about you. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, I was born in California, moved to Florida when I was 8.
California?
California, yeah. San Francisco of all places.
Okay.
So, moved to Florida when I was 8. Lived in the Metro West area, Pine Hills, south of Pine Hills, right? Grew up there. And then eventually had a career, worked at Lockheed Martin, I did whatever, went to Valencia. Moved to Florida when I was 8 years old, north in Orange County, south of Pine Hills, north of Orange County, and then moved to Osceola County in 2008 when I got out of the Army. Moved back to Osceola County.
All right, the Army. Tell me your stint. Where did you serve?
So
and how long?
I was in the 173rd Airborne Infantry Brigade, and that was the greatest unit I could have ever gone to. It was just full of tremendous people and tremendous leadership. Everyone was an example of honor and integrity. It was just a tremendous place. Was stationed in Italy, about 20 minutes from Venice, and went to Afghanistan twice, and it was just an incredible experience.
How long did you serve now?
6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
Okay. You're not a lifer then?
No, I'm not a lifer. I would have loved to. I have a bunch of kids, and being stationed in Italy was tough, and going to Afghanistan when the rotations were every other year was kind of tough. So I just made a family decision and left.
All right, your background. I heard that you are an attorney. Did you pass the bar at all?
I have not taken the bar
you
yet. So
haven't?
I'll be taking the bar in February.
Well, we have a bar over here, you know. And I think you'd pass that very easily.
I could pass, for sure.
Okay. What school did you go for? Becoming an attorney, a legal counsel, legal beagle.
I went to Barry University in Orlando. It was like a last-minute decision. It was a Catholic school, and that kind of was in line with my feelings. I wanted to go to a school that had faith principles.
All right. How long was that stint?
Well, it took me. I was going part-time, and it took me 4 years to get through the program. And then I left. My father got cancer and died. And while he was going through that process, I kind of took a break from school. And it was the same time as COVID So I actually finished in 4 years, but I didn't pick up my graduation 2 years later. I kind of left it. I just needed to apply and turn in the paper. So
when are you going to take the bar exam? Soon?
In February.
In February? Yeah. Is there a protocol to follow, a study material and everything else?
There is, but I'm just like I'm unorthodox in everything that anyone knows about. You know, I'm also
I haven't heard that term. Unorthodox, you?
Yeah. So I'll see. I'm not a studier, so I kind of like try to pay attention. Of course, you can't take the bar lightly. It's one of the hardest bars in the country. So I'll study closer to February. And
Do you need a study person? Because I am very helpful, believe it or not. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. And I don't mind helping you.
That throws up a red flag. Well, I appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not joking about that. Okay.
Thank you.
So if you need me, I still have my gray matter intact. The rest of the body's falling apart, but I'll be glad to help you.
Thank you.
All right. How did you get in politics?
Wow. So 10 years ago in 2012, I had a friend who was running for Congress, and I had a communications career going at that time, and he said, listen, I want your help. and would you please help me run my campaign? So I did. We ran his campaign. I thought it was, we kind of knew what the percentages were going to be, and we hit right on that target, but at the same time, it looked very good. It was a very good-looking campaign, and I was very proud of it. And I
Did
think
he win?
He did not win.
Oh, okay. So it was a good campaign, even though he didn't win.
I think it was a professionally run campaign.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
not every candidate is destined to win, right?
Right.
And sometimes, thank God for that. So, so it didn't work out for him, but that got me started into politics. My background is in communications, and so I was always studying, for example, like communications. Like if you remember when AT&T and Verizon and Sprint were fighting over who had the best coverage. Remember those commercials? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? So I was studying that and what it was costing and quantifying how much it would cost a company to get a conversion, right? To get somebody to switch cell phone companies. And so I basically was using that knowledge for politics. And then the Romney campaign called, and they, the RNC, and they asked me to do the Get Out the Vote campaign for Romney in 2012.
That name now, Romney, okay?
Yeah,
that's your background.
2012.
We'll let that go, all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we did a really good job, you know, and then I started helping people when anyone asked. It really wasn't my focus of my work, you know, but I was helping and I got involved. Really based on the advice that same friend that ran for Congress gave me 10 or 12 years ago, and it was that he had interned in Tallahassee, and he was an intern for a senator, and he learned a lot when he was there, but one of the things that he learned that he brought back was that none of the people in Tallahassee were better or smarter or better looking, or there was nothing special about them. They were everyday Americans just like you and I. And that really opened my eyes to wanting to become involved. So I didn't have to go to Harvard. I didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to.
Well, you are far from perfect.
I am far from perfect.
And you can ask others to actually validate that. Be able to offer
Many
that
have
testimony.
validated. Last night it was validated, in fact.
Now, how did you get into this Board of Education election?
So
why that? Why not maybe city council or something along those lines?
Yeah. Well, the city was really. I do live inside city limits, and it was something that I considered. There were two things about the school board that I thought were more in line with my goals. One was to be able to actually make an impact after being elected.
Well, you've had made an impact.
Yeah.
You were explosive. You're like worse than dynamite. Okay, continue, John.
So in the city, I didn't think that I could. Right? It's much smaller organization. You have a city manager, and just the complexities there. I made a calculation that it would be better for me to go to school board, based on what I knew then. Right? And then running, I thought, well, I'm a CEO. I'm a business guy. I have an idea of what I'm doing here in terms of business and whatever, and management and operations. And I figured that we'd just go from a B to an A. You know, and that was the whole basis of my campaign was, I had this whole Plan 33 where we can modernize education and just make the district the best that it could be. 5 minutes after being elected, I realized that there was a lot wrong at the district that had nothing to do with being a business person. Being a business person wasn't going to help you. It was about being a man of character. And if you weren't a man of character, then you were going into a black hole.
Well, you used that term, character, and you are a character. It has many definitions and everything else. Go on.
So so I get there, and there was a lot wrong, and I prayed deeply about it, and I came to the conclusion that you can either play along, and you can have a successful political career in this county, or you can really make an impact. One of the two.
Well, I classify or categorize you as the gadfly on a horse's tuchus, okay? and I say that because I'm similar. Look, I run parallel to you. I come in, have my bloodbath, shoot away by the tail, then I come in for another dive, and another, and another, and another. I'm relentless, and I believe you fit that characterization.
Yeah, well, I see myself as a fighter and a warrior. Maybe not necessarily a gadfly on a horse's butt, but I'm a soldier. I've been in war. literally. And I've heard the voices of my enemy, the enemies of this country, and I have chased them down. And when I see these people, what they're doing to my kids, and not just my kids, but the kids of the county, I do take it seriously, and I put myself in that frame of mind. When I go to those school board meetings, first of all, I pray before I start, right? And then I immediately, just emotionally and mentally and intellectually, I start putting on my armor. I put on my body armor, I start getting my kit together, and then I go into that meeting, and then I remember what my mission is. And my mission is to protect the kids of Osceola and to represent the families. And so that's...
Do you have any particular platform that you established prior to actually being elected to the board?
I did. And so really my platform before was to modernize the education. The model of education needs to be redrawn, right? So we've been using the same model for 200 years, and it's time to take some of the best, right, of what we've learned over education for the past millennia, and now bring it back to what we know today that is effective. Right?
So you're not a progressive like John Dewey or Horace Mann, because
No.
they were of the progressive schools and everything else. So,
Right.
So how do you modernize it?
Well, for me, it's really understanding the place that society is in today, right, and how our kids learn. So for one, you take the best examples, like when you have a business, right? If you're building a Ferrari, right, you don't go look at a Ford Focus and think I'm the build a Ford Focus. You go and you look at a Lamborghini, you look at a Ferrari, right? You look at the best examples if you're going to build a car, right? And then according to whatever your budget is, then you start to scale down and you end up with something else, right? But if your goal as a person, as a visionary, is to start at the Ford Focus, then you're not going to be a leader that has much consequence, right? So you want to build a Ferrari. So when I look at myself and I think, we're going to rebuild the model of education, I want to build a Ferrari. So a Ferrari model, for example, is classicals. And here's something that I've been working on right now, which is basically a classical type of education. So Alexander the Great, right? Do you know who his educator was?
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you look at these great Greek educators, okay, they were educating people to become princes, right? To become kings, right? They were educating them on how to rule a kingdom. And in order to rule a kingdom, you needed to know a little bit about everything, and you needed to have good instincts, and you needed to be able to be decisive and make good decisions on behalf of a population, right? And somewhere along the line that got lost, and it turned into what it is today, which is we're going to deliver a little chunk of education. The way that McDonald's delivers food, right, is the way that we deliver education.
Well, the Romans and the Greeks believed in a trivium, okay?
Right.
Initiated with grammar, okay?
Right.
Next step, okay? Depending on the grade level, okay? Logic.
Yes.
And then the final step, rhetoric.
Right.
So they wanted you to understand the language and be able to communicate. And then reason,
Yes.
okay? And then present persuasive arguments.
And with those three things, you can do anything, right? You can open up a book of math easily and make yourself aware, right, of a mathematical formula or something, right? You could teach yourself. So so I think that we should take that portion of education and bring it back, because right now we're extracting that from our educational model right now. So the other thing is, if you look in like the Renaissance, right, there was something called the Renaissance man. And the Renaissance man had, was marked by several things. He had to have all these characteristics, right, which is one, he had to be a warrior, he had to be a poet, he had to be a scientist, he had to be an artist.
And a
right?
musician.
And a
believe it or
musician,
not. Yes.
right. So the point is that when you look at all these great examples of education, you look at a holistic viewpoint, right, a holistic perspective on what you're creating as the person. You're not just delivering education so that you can get a checkbox on your evaluation, submit it so that you can get paid, so that you can get a bonus as the superintendent. You were worried about that human being as a human being and trying to make them the best quality person that they could be. And that's what we've lost.
Let me ask you this. How receptive are the other board members to this?
Well, I'll put it this way. They're not receptive enough to things that should be non-starters at the school district, like, let's say, getting rid of corruption, right? I mean, we shouldn't be arguing about corruption at this point. It's 2021, and the board majority, in my opinion, is treating our school district like if it's a Latin American dictatorship. It's full of corruption. There's problems. Absolutely, there are problems there that need to be looked at. Some of them may be legal. Some of them may be immoral.
Well, how do you propose to make the change?
Well,
To
I'm an aggressive.
minimize, if not eliminate corruption.
Well, I have an aggressive type personality. So for me, I went to the board meeting. I've had the conversations behind the scenes. I said this is going on. I've pointed these things out, and they've ignored me. So a lot of the criticism that I receive is, well, you gotta work with the other board members. Well, I've tried that. I gave them their
Well,
opportunities.
can't you compromise?
No. First of all, well, I say no quickly, right? But can I compromise on corruption? No, right? Because that's not what our job is. We have a job. We have a duty. And when I got up there, when I joined the service, I raised my right hand and I swore to defend this country, and I did. Right? I did, at the risk of my own life. I not only raised my hand when I swore my oath, I raised my hand with my weapon and I defended this country, right? With every ounce and every fiber of my being. And so I made the same oath when they swore me into a school board member, right? Those other four, they may not take that oath very seriously. In my opinion, they don't.
So they're
right? But I do.
swearing at you then?
Well, certainly they've been swearing at me, yeah.
Let me ask you this. There are a lot of school systems, even in the state with DeSantis and everything else, regarding CST, white privilege, so on and so forth. Is our school district into that? Because I've heard a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you some concrete examples. We had a teacher who was a high-performing teacher, okay? He had gotten the highest marks that you can get as a teacher, okay? He was essentially chased out of a training because they told him to check his white privilege at the door. And it was a training on cultural, relation, race stuff, whatever it was, however they want to call it. They don't like to call it CRT, right, because CRT is a brand. But I call it CRT Light or CRT Like.
Well, did they go into Project 1619?
I don't know. I wasn't at the training.
Okay.
But the training certainly was telling them about equity and so on and whatever. Now, here's the thing. I'm a first-generation American, right? And by the standards of this country, I'm a man of color, right? I have kids that are on a spectrum of color, of skin color. Certainly, if my oldest son and my youngest son walk into the same place in this school district, they would be treated differently, right? And the reason that they would be treated differently is nothing more than the color of their skin. So the same man raised both of those kids. The same man loves those kids. It's the same man who is raising those children, those young boys to become men. But those two boys, those two young men at some point will be treated differently at our school district because of a political agenda. It has nothing to do with their education, right? So they're making and I don't think that they understand how racist that actually is, right? So instead of worrying about providing equity and them deciding what equity is for our students, just do a good damn job teaching the kids. Teach them to do math in the best way that you can. Teach them to read the best that you can, according to their own capacities and capabilities.
It's no longer Common Core, is that correct?
It's not, no.
Okay, I used to call it Common Whore because they prostituted the educational system. I'm glad that it is gone.
No.
What other questions do I have? I have a whole series of questions, but I don't want to go into a long tirade on this. Are you enjoying yourself participating in the Board of Education?
Wow. So that's the first time anybody's asked me that. So.
Well, I ask a lot of questions because I am curious.
Yeah. Well, I'm a hyper-competitive person, right? So for me, I do see this as I go onto there and I battle with them. So on an intellectual level, I enjoy it, right? On an emotional level, it doesn't bother me except for the fact that I know that the price is high, right? For this game that we're playing, the price is very high. Essentially, it's the price of our children's education, right? It's the price of the future of our country, even. Because what's happening here is happening all over the country, I imagine, right? It's not only happening in Osceola County. Osceola County is a strange animal in the sense that it's doubled in size over the past 10 years or so, right? So you have like this Dukes of Hazzard with no good guys kind of environment of the county, right? And then you have people who are desperate to hold on to power because they've had it for 200 years. And now to relinquish any sort of power or the ability to get what they want from their government is just waning, right? So, and that's not a partisan thing, right? Because they were talking about Democrats and Republicans. If you look at all of our elected leaders right now, they're all grasping the power with just desperation, with bloody fingernails, grasping on the power. And the community is rising up against them. right?
With the composition as it currently stands with the board, do you think you could really make an impact and a difference?
I'll die trying. I think that any man, here's the thing, this is the United States, right? This is the United States of America. Less than 60 men signed the Declaration of Independence. Did they make a difference? Half of them were killed or lost all of their property and all of their money, but did they make a difference? Absolutely. So I'm just one man, but I'm not the only one who's in this fight. There's a lot of people who are supporting me, who come to me and say, you know what, we're with you. We want you to keep doing this. So I might look like I'm alone, but certainly the community, I think, is behind me. And the community doesn't want corruption in their school district. The community does not want CRT. The community does not want strife in the school district or with these kids. Our kids are out of control in our schools. We have kids having sex in the bathrooms, kids having sex against the buildings at our schools.
You've got to be kidding.
I'm absolutely not
I haven't
kidding.
heard anything. Nothing's in the newspaper. Did they prosecute or?
Well, what can
Is there evidence?
There's absolutely. There's video. There's a Instagram page that has kids having sex in the bathroom. So there's, the district does not want to have itself exposed because you're talking about individuals, right? So individuals don't want to be exposed. They don't want to be responsible. They don't want to be holding the grenade in their hand when it goes off, right? So they're scrambling to deal with these issues of a school district that is basically out of control, right? We had, and I've received permission to speak about this issue. I had a mother call me recently. And at first it was a friend of that mother's. She called me and she said, listen, I need your help. We're desperate. We need your help. And she said, I know before you reject me, I'm your political opponent, right? I've worked against you. I've spoken out against you. I have been a fervent opposer to what I'm doing. And she has been, right? But she also said, we went to our side and they rejected us. They did not help us. Right? So then we have to humble ourselves and we have to come to you. Right? So these people they went to their side, they went to the establishment, the Osceola establishment. They asked for help. They were not given their help. Then they come to me, have to humble themselves and come to me. Right? So I said, I that's fine. I don't care about any of that stuff. What do you need? What help do you need? Well, it turns out she put me in contact with the mother who was having the issue. The mother told me that her daughter was being groomed at one of our schools. So she goes to school. She's been homeschooled for the past several years, right? She goes to OXA, her senior year of high school, okay? Within 9 months, the child has her hair dyed, she's wearing a binding bra, and she's forced to carry an asexual flag because she's still a virgin, has not had sex with a boy or a girl yet. So there's a clique, right? This whole transgender and LGBT issue, what it's become is the new marijuana, it's the new cigarettes, right? Like you used to get peer pressured in school to smoke cigarettes. Now you used to get peer pressured in school to smoke marijuana. Now you're getting peer pressured to be gay. If you're not gay, you're not cool. If you're not on the LGBT spectrum, then you're not cool. And that's just a new thing. Now the problem, right? It's a phase for all of society. The problem is that adults are buying into that because it's part of a political agenda, right? And that's wrong. I don't send my kid for that. Right? I don't care. The law recently is K through third, that right, 1447, that's dealing with K through third. But
and that's the parental rights. There's nothing mentioned about gay.
No, right, you're right.
Okay. That's a misnomer.
Absolutely. But the problem is that it's an agenda. And what we don't want is for kids of any age to be distracted from becoming a Renaissance adult or from becoming someone who is a holistically educated person into becoming somebody who has an agenda of their own or confused about gender. It should not even be a topic of discussion, right? And no one is preventing a teacher from having an open, random conversation with a student. It's about it being part of the curriculum or it being part of this injected, right? As part of something other than their education. And that's really the problem. And I see it's going over, it's happening all over the country. It's certainly happening in our district. And you asked about CRT. Like I said, all this stuff is happening. And I want to break it down to one thing. You asked me about the Army, and I told you the first thing I said was about leadership, right? I had tremendous leadership when I was in the Army. Tremendous leadership. 3 of the people in my battalion won the Medal of Honor, which is an extremely high percentage, right? Dozens of them won the Silver Stars and all kinds of valor awards, right? That only happens in units with tremendous leadership. right? Because you're willing to charge up a hill, do whatever you have to do, not just to save your brother, but in honor of your leaders, right? In the Army unit that I was in, that was the standard. Anyone in that unit could have won a Medal of Honor because we were all focused on our job and we had tremendous leadership. At our district, it's the exact opposite. We have a crisis of leadership. We have someone who doesn't want to accept any accountability or any accountability or any responsibility for what's going on. We have leaders who don't want to be transparent and just trying to hide anything. Anytime something bad happens, they try to hide it right away. You know, that's not leadership. You know, leadership is taking it on the chin, right, and inspiring the people beneath you. We had a protest yesterday. We had employees doing a protest yesterday. We had an employee who worked for the school district 28 years. She's making $12.80. Okay? There's all kinds of problems in the district, but they're not dealing with them. Instead, they're only dealing with making their reputations better. And that makes me sick to my stomach.
Jon, I'm going to end this conversation. It's been enlightening. I praise you for your backbone, your guts, your fortitude, your persistence, and perseverance. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that ends a nice journey, another episode of We the People Let's Talk. See you next time.